This house off Massachusetts Avenue in Washington, D.C. is an office of the Soviet military attachés. Some of these men have legitimate business there. However, most military attachés in reality are spies of the GRU, operating closely with the KGB. Working under the Ministry of Defense, the GRU specifically confines its activities to espionage in military matters. The first chief directorate of the KGB, however, has ultimate authority over the GRU espionage networks. During World War II, Kaarlo Tuomi was recruited into the Soviet military intelligence. He was born in Michigan of Finnish parents who left America and went to the Soviet Union while he was still a boy. His boyhood knowledge of America made him a natural candidate to become a Soviet spy sent back to the U.S. as an illegal.
I was trained to collect military information about the United States Armed Forces with special emphasis on naval affairs and shipment of arms, locations of docks and warehouses, specifically in the harbor of New York, where these arms were being stored and handled, and from where they being shipped to foreign countries.
In other words, you were a spy.
That's true. I studied the United States in general, the geography, economy, government, armed forces. The woman who was my English instructor had been born in Brooklyn, was a graduate of Columbia University, had an excellent command of modern American English.
What about the American culture? I mean, how were you trained so that you would feel at home in America once you got there from Moscow?
Well, the basic way of getting me into touch with American reality and culture was by showing American movies. From movies, you can learn quite a bit how people behave, how they dress, how they talk. And so that's a very important way to train an agent who is to operate in that particular country. One of the agents, he was not an instructor, but he was a more administrative personnel. He took me to a storehouse which looked like really like an American clothing store, where they picked the clothing the right size. Well, the suits and overcoat had to be adjusted.
Were these American clothes that were shipped over to the Soviet Union?
They were American clothes. A lot of them were from Macy's. I entered the United States by train. I took a train from Montreal to Chicago. So Canada was used as a stepping ground to enter the United States.
Is Canada a usual way that the Soviets put spies in the United States?
It is considered the easiest way.
Soviet agents in the U.S. went to great lengths to create what is called his legend or his cover story.
This legend, for the later years where I was employed, especially in New York and in Milwaukee, the Soviet diplomatic intelligence agents had done a lot of groundwork. They had studied these different places. They took pictures from the outside. They had even some pictures taken inside of these places.
In Moscow, Tuomi was shown these photographs of a lumber company in the Bronx where he was supposed to have worked, and of a General Electric plant where he was also supposed to have been employed.
They have been taken by Soviet diplomatic personnel, in most cases working for the UN. Instructions for me originated in Moscow. and were sent in coded form to Soviet intelligence agents who were posing as UN diplomats. And they were processed by these diplomat spies and then sent to me by letter with a New York postmark.
Did you ever get money from Soviet officials working with or for the UN?
Definitely. They left the drops, magnetic containers like this. I usually received $3,000 at a time. It was always in advance. Once I received $5,400, which was in advance. This container.
How was that container used?
Well, the top of the container is magnetized, and then it is left at a predetermined place, which is called a drop, under a railroad bridge, under an elevated, inside a support of a bridge or something, and it was never lost. This was a very reliable gadget.
And this was used all over New York City? Or in
Yes.
places in New York City?
Yes, I had 4 different drops.
As this FBI photo shows, Tuomi met with his Soviet handler, Alexei Galkin. He then took a cover job at Tiffany's Jewelers in New York. Beneath this subway bridge in the Bronx was one of the drop points he had for messages. Another was the Hudson River train line. Another was under this railroad bridge in Queens at 69th Street. Another on this telephone pole in Yonkers. Once he was well established, Tuomi was ordered to take a job where he could carry out surveillance of the docks at the port of New York. Eventually, he was caught by the FBI and became a double agent.
When you were caught by the FBI, did you try to signal your Soviet handlers at the UN or in Moscow that you had been caught?
Not immediately, because I couldn't. It was in my mind, but I couldn't do it immediately. I did send a signal to the center, which is Soviet intelligence, military intelligence headquarters in Moscow. I sent a signal 3 months after I had been caught by the FBI.
How did you send the signal? What means?
I sent the signal by inserting it in a message which I wrote under the control of the FBI. But I got away from the FBI agents for a few minutes to write that message using the washroom.
And was this a hidden writing technique that you used?
Yes, I had an extra sheet of chemically treated paper, which was used for secret writing, and I used that in the washroom. There was an internal struggle inside of me. I was torn apart. I was pro-Soviet. I believed in a Soviet system. And here I was working for the FBI, the enemy of my country. I just couldn't live with the idea of betraying the Soviet Union.
Are you still pro-Soviet?
Oh, definitely not.
So what changed you? I don't understand how you've changed, or why you've changed.
That's a very long process, something that doesn't happen overnight.
This is the KGB Blue Book, where Tuomi is listed under his Soviet name. In it, he is named as an enemy of the fatherland. But even a spy caught and turned finds it difficult to be parted from his country.
Because of the family.
Your family that you had over in the Soviet Union?
Yes, I had a wife and I had 3 children. Otherwise, coming back to the United States, that's the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
Have you ever heard from your former wife or your children?
No, I haven't heard from them since 1963.